Everyone, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy, and in today's video, I'm going to share some tips that I have come to acquire over the last several months about how to host a really engaging and successful virtual event. So whether you're hosting an online yoga series for children, or if you're doing a business conference that's now having to go from in-person to virtual, or if you're doing a virtual workshop, if you are, let's say, a physical therapist or something like that, whatever type of virtual online class or workshop or event that you're looking to host and really make it as successful as possible, this video is going to give you some great takeaways to help your attendees really get the most out of this event. Now, since March, I have invested thousands and thousands of dollars into a lot of these virtual events and classes that I've been attending for various reasons. And there's definitely a huge difference between some of them that I would consider like the gold standard of virtual events. And there's some that definitely kind of fell flat and I got really no value out of. And that's not to say that the person who was hosting them isn't an excellent teacher, isn't an expert in their field. It's just that there were some things about the event that just made it such that it was very hard for me to attend. It was very hard for me to retain any information. And there was really very little engagement amongst attendees. So we're going to talk about all that stuff today. Now, full disclosure, I just wrapped up attending a 3-day virtual event called Tribe Live. So as you guys know, I took Stu McLaren's Tribe course, which is all about membership sites. And now I did the Tribe Live event, which was 3 days just this past weekend. And now I'm in the Tribe membership. So obviously his marketing is working for me. But he and the Tribe team really put on what I would consider to be that gold standard of online events. So I'm going to be talking a lot about some specifics from that event, but I really want to make sure you understand before we get into this video that they have a huge, gigantic budget for events like Tribe Live. But the tips and strategies that I'm going to talk about today are going to be very possible even if you have a much more modest budget. And I'm going to give you some very specific examples, especially for those of you in the indoor play space. All right, so let's get started with the tips. And by the way, if you'd rather read this and you don't like to watch YouTube videos, I did link the blog with all of this information in the description of this video. All right, let's get going. So the first tip that I have to host a really engaging virtual event is to have a workbook or a way for attendees to follow along. Now, this one might seem pretty obvious, but I actually found that a lot of the events and classes that I was attending since COVID hit in March didn't have any sort of workbook or way to follow along or way for me to kind of take notes as I was learning. And even if, again, you're doing like a yoga class for children, give the parents a way to follow along. Give them some nuggets of information, like how the pose should look, what they should look out for in terms of form, how often they should practice, things like that. If you're giving any of that knowledge away during the class, or if there's anything that you want parents or caregivers or even the children to know, make sure you give them a way to take notes and follow along. It's going to really increase the engagement. And the good news is that you don't have to have a big fancy printing company or a graphic designer in order to make a very simple workbook. I always design mine in Canva, and you can use the free version for this. I do have a pro account, but I checked and there are some workbook templates for the free account. So I just hop right into Canva, I pick a workbook template, I make it all pretty exactly how I want it to be, and then I just simply download it as a PDF and I'll either upload it to our event hub, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit later in the video, or I will just email it out to attendees. So if you're doing a virtual Halloween event, think about sending some, really anything that they could use to follow along. So maybe a schedule of events if you're going to be doing a virtual event. Just any way for them to follow along. Even if your event is not educational, giving them something tangible so that they understand what the event is going to look like and what your expectations are of them is really going to help them get as much value as possible out of the event. Now, if you are doing more of an educational type event, I do highly recommend making your PDFs fillable, meaning that somebody can actually fill in the blanks online with their computer or their phone without having to download and print it, because a lot of times printing is a huge barrier that people have when it comes to actually using and filling out a workbook. So I try to make mine fillable. There are a couple different softwares that you can use for this. One of them is Adobe Acrobat, which can get a little pricey. There's also Jotform, Jotform, which I'll also link in the description. But something that I've done if I'm doing like a course or a really involved workshop that I'm charging quite a bit of money for, I'll actually outsource this making of the PDFs fillable to somebody on Fiverr or Upwork. So somebody that really specializes in this, already has invested in the tools or software, and they can make the PDFs fillable. That is just really going to increase the likelihood that people actually utilize the workbooks. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to send something tangible. And I get a lot of pushback on this often because a lot of people think that it's just a waste of their budget to send something physically in the mail. And a lot of people think that by collecting address and information like that, it will prevent people from signing up. But I have absolutely seen the opposite. Now, the most common thing that I've seen that people will send physically in the mail when they're doing an online event is they'll actually send like a physical either schedule of events or the workbook. But that can get expensive. That, you know, if you're printing like a very large workbook or you have to bind something, that can get really expensive. So what I've seen a lot of people do, and what I'm going to start incorporating in some of my events, is I'm actually going to start sending like little postcards to people when they register for an event. And the way I've seen this used is a couple different ways. So one way that I've seen these physical postcards be used during the actual virtual event is to gamify the experience. And if you don't know what gamification means or anything like that, don't worry, we're going to get to that in tip number 5. But sending them something physical in the mail just really makes that virtual event seem even more tangible and even more real. And that can be very hard to do when 100% of their experience is virtual. So what I've seen people do with these postcards, other than gamify the experience, is they'll make it be like a little branded, like a fun saying or something like that. And during the event, there will be several calls to action where everybody can hold up their sign or hold up the postcard that they got. Or you could ask people who registered for your event to post a picture of their postcard on social media so that everybody knows that they're going to be attending the event, therefore getting more exposure for your business, et cetera, et cetera. And I use Vistaprint a lot for these postcard types of things. There are definitely other ways to accomplish this. I know Canva has their own printing service, but you can accomplish this very inexpensively, and it adds such a personal touch to the event that it will help to convert customers to whatever offer you have for them after the event, which we will talk more about in tip number 9. So stay tuned for that. But again, sending something physical in the mail is just such a nice touch for a virtual event. For the Tribe Live event that I attended recently that I mentioned, he sent us like a whole box of goodies, and I think I actually have mine here. So he sent us this like physical box. So it says Tribe Live. It's lucky that I actually had it here. I didn't plan that. This was really fun. So he sent these envelopes that said do not open till instructed. And it had all sorts of things like coloring sheets in it. There's a couple of these. And something else that was cool is he put golden tickets in a couple different boxes, and those people got certain prizes. He sent us a hat, Post-it notes, all sorts of stuff. This is an example of one of those postcards that I was mentioning. You could put like a funny phrase on them and send them out. This was probably very inexpensive to print. It's just a way for people to feel connected to each other and like it's an actual physical event. He had confetti in here. He had cookies, which of course I already ate. This was a little pin. I put the pin on my Kajabi lanyard, but these pins, these enamel pins, are super popular right now. A sticker sheet. This had blue light glasses in it. I don't know where I put the glasses, but I did use them for the entire event. And I love this box of goodies because it's all so practical. Like I use the blue light blocker glasses now anytime I'm working on my computer. He also sent like a tumbler, which I now use to drink beverages from. Like all of this stuff can actually be used in my everyday life. And I did use it throughout his event. This is a little door hanger that basically says, do not disturb, I'm attending a virtual event, which again makes it a little bit more, make it feel like a real event, because if you were going to an in-person event, you would carve the time out, you wouldn't be multitasking, you would be fully present for that event. But with a virtual event, it's very tempting to like sit on the couch with your family and attend, or, not give 100% of your attention. So having that door hanger that says "Do not disturb" really helps cement that this is an event that you need to be fully present at, and that's going to again help people get as much value as possible from your event. And then finally, he had these little like emojis. So it's just like literally paper on a stick, on like a tongue press kind of stick, like a craft stick. And we held these up at various times during the event. And because we had these certain goodies that we were supposed to hold up at one time or another, I paid attention for the entire event. And that never happens for me for virtual events. And because I paid attention, I ended up investing in the offer at the end. I became a member of their tribe membership, which is basically the next step, which again, we'll talk about. But sending them something physical is really, really a great way to cement that customer business relationship and make them feel special and give them a little surprise that they can post onto social media. All right, my third tip is to create a community around the event. So what Tribe Live did and what a lot of events do is they'll create a pop-up or temporary Facebook group for the attendees to collaborate and discuss the event with one another. This group opened, I think, a week before the event, and then it's open a week after the event. And then it's archived where people can still search for posts, but they can't create any new posts. And this was so wonderful because there were over 3,000 people that attended this Tribe Live event that I'm referring to. And it was nice to see what other people's membership sites were. It was nice to bounce ideas off of each other in the Facebook group. It was nice to hear some of their stories and their wins. And all of that really kept me motivated and engaged throughout the entire weekend. And with a lot of live events, you don't know if there's like 50 people watching or 50,000. And you have really no way of communicating or collaborating with or setting up future partnership opportunities with other people. And bringing it back to like the indoor play space example, if you're hosting a virtual class, make sure that there's a way for parents to connect with each other, because once you're able to host in-person events again, they're going to have a relationship with one another. They're going to recognize one another. Maybe they'll set up play dates, or maybe they'll sign up for the next session of classes together because they have formed that relationship and their kids recognize each other if you had the cameras on and things like that. So I highly recommend creating at least a pop-up, maybe even a permanent Facebook group for the people who are attending your event, because it's not just the class leader that can bring value to the attendees. It's every single person that registers, because everybody has different experiences and different perspectives to bring to the table. So I love hearing from other people that are registered for the same event that I am. And another thing that we did in Tribe Live is like breakout sessions. So there were 3,000 of us, but at several different points throughout the weekend, the Tribe Live through Zoom, the Tribe Live team would break us out randomly into groups of 6. And we would fill out an exercise together, or we would bounce ideas off of each other. And those like small groups really made it feel like much more of an in-person event, because one of the biggest things that is missing from virtual events is networking. When you ask people why they go to conferences, why they go to live events, things like that, or like parenting summits, or why they go to parenting meetups, it's to network. It's to get to know other people face to face. It's to meet other like-minded people. So I would say the number one thing that people miss with their virtual events is simulating that in-person networking connection factor. And using Zoom and these breakout rooms and the Facebook group combined really almost gives you that same look and feel as an in-person event. So I highly recommend utilizing both of those things. All right, the fourth tip that I have, this is going to be a quick one, is to make it as easy as possible for people to attend the event. So this is another thing that I really see most people miss the mark on. A lot of people will try to just email out the link or email out the resources, and have email really be the only way that the event host is communicating with the registrants. And when it comes time to access the materials or get a look at all the information together, it can be very hard for attendees to search their inbox and things like that. So I highly recommend having some sort of like membership hub where you can have all the links to attend, all of the resources, really everything that anybody who's attending the event needs to know in order to make the most of their experience. So schedule of events, any downloads, the workbook, all of that stuff, having it in one central location with like a specific website is so helpful for attendees. So for me, I use Kajabi. So what I would do is I would create a new product in Kajabi, and I would call it like Indoor Play Space Summit. And I would email that link out, and I would say, listen, everything you need is in this link. Every link that you'll need, every download, everything you'll need to make the most out of your event is right here. And then that way people just need to bookmark that one link. They don't need to search through their inbox every time they need to access something. And that is really going to increase the likelihood that they'll actually attend and access all of the materials. So just simply put, the one takeaway that I want you to take from this tip is, if you don't make it as easy as humanly possible for people to attend the event live, simply put, they won't. So if your event is high ticket, then yes, and they invested a lot of money, then yes, they're going to find a way to attend. But you will be overwhelmed with support questions for people looking for the links, people looking for downloads, people asking where their physical shipment is. So I highly recommend having one hub, maybe with like a live chat feature, so that everybody knows exactly where they need to be at what times and all that good stuff. So highly recommend that. All right, my fifth tip is to gamify the experience to really increase engagement. And the Tribe team did a really good job of this, in that they had their whole website set up like any single time we clicked a link or downloaded something or answered a question or filled out a workbook section or attended a session, our Tribe points would go up. And this was, I don't know how they set it up. It was really cool. I know it was custom built for them because they had, again, that gigantic budget, but it really made me download every single thing. It made me engage with other people. It really forced me to sit down and, do the workbook because I saw my points go up. And people love, that gamification thing. They love competing. There was a leaderboard where it showed like the top 250 point earners. And then I remember at the end, the top 200 people in terms of points, they got a really special prize at the end. So that was really fun. But again, you don't need a huge budget to make this gamification strategy effective in your event. So Stu McLaren, who is the host of Tribe, he has all sorts of these like catchphrases or buzzwords that he uses all the time. So like, for example, like listen up or hot diggity dog is like something that he says all the time. So let's say, bring it back to the yoga example. If there's different positions that you say, or if you say namaste a lot, or if you say, hips down, or if there are like phrases that you consistently say throughout your classes, create a bingo board. Have it be for parents or caregivers to make sure that they are dialed in during the event, or for the children if they want. If they're rewatching it, if they're not doing like the actual moves while they're watching the class, get creative with this. And if you can't do something while the class is happening, for whatever reason, you can always do a quiz at the end or something like that to still have that kind of gamification process without having to have people do stuff during the class. So you can always have them fill out a survey or a quiz at the end and then give a prize to the people who get a certain score or something like that. So another way to do this is, if you do have a Facebook group for event attendees, you can also give prizes to the top engagers. So not only does it give that gamification factor, but it also encourages people to engage with one another and help one another, because don't forget, as the event host, we are not the only person who can provide value for these attendees. So that is kind of like a double win. You're encouraging engagement and also making a game out of it, making it a little bit more fun. All right, my next tip is, don't offer a free replay. And this is, again, one of those more, I guess, controversial ones. And I'm going to give you some reasons why, but then I'm going to give you a little caveat at the end, because this might not apply to you. So for my events, or many of my events, the entire success of the event or the workshop relies on people being there in person. I mean, not in person, but they're live while I'm actually delivering the information and engaging and talking. And people don't get as much value out of my workshops because they're very interactive when they watch the replay. And something that I learned, especially from Tribe Live, but also a lot of other events, is if you do not offer a free replay, that will drastically increase the amount of people that you have showing up live. So if your event does not, it doesn't matter if people show up and engage. If you have no stake in having them actually show up live, then by all means offer a free replay. With a lot of my webinars, I'll offer a free replay for like a couple days. It will be expiring soon, something like that. But if you really need people to show up, like the tribe team really needed people to show up live because these speakers were answering questions and they delivered an offer at the end that was only good during the event. So if people were watching the replay, not only would they miss out on that amazing offer that they put forth to all attendees, but the tribe team would also be missing out on a lot of sales, because if the people that were watching the replay did end up wanting the offer, it would have already been expired. So again, if your event at all relies on having people show up, do not offer a free replay. It will drastically increase your show up rate. If it doesn't really matter, then offer a replay, but just know that it will decrease significantly your live show up rate. All right, the 7th tip that I have is to have a support team or a virtual assistant. And this is something that I learned from my own events, but also through other events that I've attended. So while you're speaking live, you can't offer support. If somebody can't find a link, or they can't log in, or they're having some sort of like technical issue, or if your sound is off, or your mic's not working, or the video's choppy, or something like that, if you're speaking live, you cannot support them. And not only will that person then have a bad experience, but they're probably going to request a refund, but it's going to drain your energy as a speaker. I know for a fact that if I'm constantly putting out tech fires and answering support emails and I'm being pulled in a bunch of different places, I cannot teach at a high level. I cannot deliver a quality presentation, one that I promised when people signed up for the event. So even if it's just a temporary virtual assistant, I highly recommend having somebody there to help out with your, at least handling the support email or the live chat feature that you have on your hub, because it's going to protect your energy and make sure that you can deliver the best experience possible. And it's just going to give everybody a much better experience and make sure that everyone is where they need to be and everyone can log in and there's no issues whatsoever. And if there is issues, they can get resolved quickly rather than having to wait until the end of the event after you're done speaking. The second last tip I have, tip number 8, if you guys are following along, is to always over deliver and try to make it as fun as possible. Now, I already sprinkled in some tips on how to make it fun throughout this video, but over delivering by throwing in bonuses, by sending something extra in the mail, by having a guest speaker that was a surprise, or throwing in a surprise pre-recorded bonus or a discount code to something, some sort of like exclusive offer just for attendees. Any ways that you can over deliver on the promise that you originally put forth when you were having people register for the event, any way you can over deliver on that promise is not only going to make people a lot happier that they invested in your class, event, whatever the case may be, but it's also going to incentivize them to give you a little bit more grace. So for example, let's say you're doing a virtual summit, or you're doing like a back to school parenting summit. Let's say you're an indoor play space and you've gathered some local parenting resources to help local parents enter the school year safely. Let's say there's a pediatrician and they're supposed to be talking about masks or something like that. Let's say they had a family emergency and they couldn't do their talk. Or let's say the presentation wasn't so good, they fell flat, it didn't resonate with the audience. Let's just say something like that goes wrong, where people are upset that they didn't get what was promised. If you've over-delivered in other areas in your event, they're going to give you a lot more grace. They're going to be a lot more understanding, and that's going to give you the time and space that you need in order to rectify whatever went wrong. So if you need to find another guest expert to fill in the gap, or if you need that person to kind of pre-record their speech, maybe they were a little bit nervous, or maybe they didn't prepare as well. However you need to fix whatever happened, if you've over-delivered, they're going to be a lot more gracious. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way. So let's say, bring it back to the yoga class example. If you're delivering a 7-week yoga class for children, and parents are obviously the ones registering, let's say, something happened and your video glitched. If you had uploaded let's say a yoga for beginners practice guide or something like that. Let's say you uploaded a starter course to help kids just get the basic yoga poses down, or helping them learn basic terms. if you can point to that and say, hey, I know my video is being glitchy right now. I'm going to have it up and running in a second. But in the meantime, go look at this bonus. This is a really great way to kind of spend this time. That's going to make people a lot happier. And it's going to make sure that, again, you have the time to fix whatever happened. So highly, highly, highly recommend that. And again, over delivering is just always a way to ensure that people are going to keep investing in your business, keep trusting you as either their mentor or their go-to for parenting services or educational services, whatever that case may be. Always over deliver on your promise. Even if nothing goes wrong, it will never have a negative effect. I promise you that. So yeah, my favorite way is to have surprise guest speakers or bonus modules or bonus courses, or a lot of times even templates. It could be as easy as a template depending on what your course topic is, but always give more than you promise. And then my last tip number 9 on how to have an engaging, successful virtual event, class, summit, conference is to have an offer at the end. Now, this can seem counterintuitive to a lot of people because if somebody has invested in an event, let's say your event was like $97, it might feel weird to ask them to invest even more after the event. But if you deliver a great experience and if you made it fun and you had people competing against one another and people, had a great experience and they got a lot of value out of it and they formed relationships with the people that had also registered for the event. If they're walking out of that event or, metaphorically because it's virtual, they're going to want to continue working with you. They're going to want to continue learning from you. So give them a way to continue on your customer journey or your customer value ladder, whatever that may be. So bringing it back to the yoga class example for the indoor play space owner. Let's say there's another class that's coming up. Let's say it's a messy art class. If there's another yoga series that's maybe intermediate and you had previously taught the beginner one, give somebody a next step to continue working with you, continue investing in your business, because chances are they're going to want to if you took all of these tips to heart and made it, again, a great experience. And when you're creating this offer, I really want to encourage you to think about what their logical next step would be. What do they need next? So again, for yoga, if you taught a beginner class, the next logical step would be making it a little bit harder, making it an intermediate level. If you are a nutritionist and you're teaching a 3-day detox, maybe the next step is to invite them into a course or program that, instead of just focusing on like a 3-day detox, focuses on a lifestyle change, which requires a lot more learning, probably a bigger investment, but it's going to give them that entire lifestyle change outside of that 3 days. But the thing is that they might not have had the trust in you or the confidence in your teaching style to invest in that bigger program or the longer class series or a membership at your play space or something like that. They might not have had the confidence in you to invest in that larger offer from the beginning. But now that you've given them a taste of what you can deliver virtually, they're much more likely to invest more money with you. So always give them a way to continue spending money with you and make your offer very time limited. So I would highly recommend either doing it such that the offer expires at the end of event, or at the most, I would have your cart open for like a week after the event. And that is pushing it. I would try to make it as time sensitive as possible so that people have a reason to invest at that moment. So if you're selling a class that, or let's say you're an indoor play space and you want people to become a member of your play space after the event, and that is your offer. Now that they've gotten comfortable with your teaching and things like that, you want them to become a member of your play space. But you sell the memberships all the time. So how can you make it time sensitive? You can give them a special price that's only limited to a certain time frame of when they can sign up. You can give them a bonus. You can give them, a gift pack of 10 free coffees. You can give them a bonus of like a t-shirt or a merch package. There are so many ways that you could incentivize people to actually, pull out their credit card and take advantage of the offer that you're offering at the time of the event. Again, whether it be a discount code or time-sensitive bonuses or things like that, that again will actually make people invest. Because if you allow them to wait and you give them the option to wait, that is going to make you lose out on a lot of sales. You're going to leave a lot of money on the table. And a lot of people that have virtual events think, oh, I have their contact information. Next time I have an offer, I'll send it to them and I'm sure I'll get a great conversion rate if they had a great experience. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case. People forget, people are probably attending all sorts of virtual things. So a much better practice would be to offer something right at the end of that event and not giving them a chance to wait. Because again, if they had a great experience, they'll want to keep working with you. All right, so those were my 9 tips to have a successful and engaging online event or class. If you have any questions whatsoever or any comments or additions to make, please let me know in the comments. I love answering all of my YouTube comments. I love connecting with you guys. And if you guys want to get my free indoor playground business bundle, I linked it below. There is all sorts of goodies that you need to get started when you're even just thinking about launching an indoor playground. So feel free to go ahead and grab that. It's absolutely free. And I will see you guys on my YouTube channel next week. Have a great day.